come to you under the most disappointing of circumstances. As the Triple C, your movement, we are extremely concerned about the escalation of political violence throughout the country, although this particular press conference is going to zone in on what transpired in Matobo yesterday, Matobo Ward 2. Now, developments in Matobo confirm the Triple C's call for a conducive environment for elections in Zimbabwe and a pre-election pact on reforms along the lines that we propose in our prepared document, and especially concerning security of the voter and freedoms for citizens, which is the seventh reform point on our 7 pillars. Now, what we are seeing under Mr. Mnangagwa's regime is not just the continued shrinking of democratic space, but a complete collapse into lawlessness. No society can function when the law is deliberately used to protect thugs, thieves, and corrupt individuals. Now, what happened yesterday, as I've indicated, concerned us significantly. We have since, as a movement, conducted an internal investigation into the events that transpired. This internal investigation is what formed the basis of our report, which was made yesterday to the police. Now, we have received a formal report for our security team that was on the ground in Matobo, and the internal investigation has revealed the following details. Obviously, as you know, the events transpired on the 16th of October 2022, which was yesterday, and the location of the violence was Matobo South Ward 2. A by-election is coming up, which is the important context to share here. And so as a run-up to the by-election, as we are preparing, as you all know, we've got a rural mobilization strategy that's taking place, where we are penetrating rural areas in every single province and district in the country. Now, pursuant to this, 2 activities were being conducted. Firstly, there was a general campaign. Secondly, there was a polling agents meeting, which was happening at the Chief Election Agent's homestead. Our campaign team, for purposes of the activities yesterday, was comprised of Nonhlanhla Mlotshwa, Honorable Kuqaqa Pulu, Honorable Daniel Molokele, Honorable Temba Dube, Honorable Ilos Nyoni, and our candidate, who's Sindiso Ngwenya. At the campaign command center, we also had a meeting, which was a polling agents meeting. You'll all be aware that one of the big shifts that has been introduced by the Triple C since its inception in January this year was to ensure that we've got polling agents at every single polling station wherever a by-election or any election for that matter is being held. And so the training for these polling agents was taking place, and at that meeting was Champion Decent Bajila, Eric Gono, and Precious Ndlovu. Now, what happened was that the campaign team met a convoy of ZANU-PF trucks. They were branded ZANU-PF, so we're under no illusion about who was responsible for this and who was behind it. There were 7 of them. This interruption by ZANU-PF is actually captured on video, and we've shared it on our social media platforms. Now, what happened was that that group barricaded the road and attacked Honorable Nyoni's truck and damaged its windows. Again, the video footage of this and the state of the car destroyed, the windows shattered, is all on record. However, Honorable Nyoni managed to speed and evaded an illegal blockade that had been created by the ZANU-PF thugs. Our team then drove to the campaign command center where the other group was, and they were followed by these ZANU-PF members who were in their branded cars, who barricaded the entire locality. Honorable Pulu and Nonhlanhla Mlotshwa then went to try and engage them so as to understand what it is that they wanted before they could reach the bigger group. ZANU-PF supporters and thugs who had assembled started to throw stones at them. They were very badly injured. The report we received actually indicates that they had to be hospitalized following this attack. Our team then retreated because gunshots were now being fired, and a total of about 5 shots were fired by the ZANU-PF supporters. So following this occurrence, the team and agents abandoned the homestead, but ZANU-PF supporters stayed there. They proceeded to attack the homestead. They broke doors and window panes. Again, evidence of the pictures and the state of the home of our CCC champion are on record. We've shared these on our social media platforms. They went further and attacked and damaged bicycles that are being used by our community organizers in the Matobo Ward 2 area, and they broke windows of the house and deflated all the tires of the bicycle. They then went into the house. They looted groceries that were at the homestead, including meat that was being cooked for the team. They stole about 50 10 kg bags of mealie meal and also stole an undisclosed amount of money from the home. They then proceeded to 2D2 Business Center and broke into the chief election agent's shop. His name is Mr. Tabani Ngwe. They broke in, they looted the entire stock in the shop, and they vandalized it. They then went on to kidnap 2 male young people, assaulted them, and dumped them at Sunyetsen police station, making a false report that they had attacked the ZANU-PF vehicles, which was not the case. 2 additional CCC members were heavily assaulted and are currently admitted at Chelanyemba Hospital. In addition to this, 9 women were beaten and are currently seeking medical attention. You'll note that what ZANU-PF did yesterday was to actually rip off the shirts of the women that they suspected to be CCC supporters, and they actually had to now walk around topless. I mean, the sheer indignity of that is concerning indeed. They then proceeded to start arbitrarily beating up people and destroying vehicles at Tidu 2 Business Center, including a bus crew from Pelandaba Bus Services, demanding to know if they had any passengers wearing yellow. A woman who wasn't actually part of our group, just a random woman who happened to be in the locality, was beaten and made to roll on the ground and denounce the opposition. Her simple crime was to wear yellow. An ambush was subsequently laid for Honorable Molokele, who is now leaving the scene, about 35 kilometers from Tibu 2 Business Center, around an area called Ematankeni. Now, you all widely circulated, obviously, was his distress voice note, which confirmed these events. About 7 vehicles then approached Mr. Molokele's group and barricaded the road so that they could not leave. They had to abandon their vehicle and fled into the bush for about 6 kilometers. Now, according to the reports that we've received from eyewitnesses, the ringleaders of the ZANU-PF thugs were identified as Moses Langa, the ZANU-PF Mat South Youth League chairperson, and one ZANU-PF local youth leader, only identified as Nhlalo, and then also a gentleman known as Mzamo and a gentleman known as Admire Maskati. Now, we've obviously approached the Zimbabwe Republic Police with this information so that they can carry out further investigations and establish the truth of what happened and bring the perpetrators to book. The campaign manager for the Matobo Ward 2 group cluster has since made a report at Sunyetsen police station. As I've indicated, an alert was made to the police when the attack was actually ongoing, especially the one that was at the homestead, but the member in charge indicated that the police did not have any fuel, so could not come. We have to emphasize that this occurrence is highly disturbing, it's unconstitutional, it's unlawful, it's problematic on a number of fronts, but it's not an isolated incident. What happened in Matobo yesterday is part of a pattern of conduct on the part of ZANU-PF. You've all noted that our chain champion-in-chief, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, cannot go to any rural area without an incident of ZANU-PF-driven violence and lawlessness. Just a few days ago, when we went to commiserate with the victims' families, the Nyatsime victims' families, they attacked our member's homestead. It was widely reported that Triple C member, Mr. Mtingwende, was badly beaten. He suffered a broken rib and had internal bleeding. We've also had similar incidents of violence in Mashingo, in Chivi, in Gundu, in Chiredzi, in Zaka, in Bikita, Chipinge, Nyamaropa, Hurungwe, Karoi, Wedza, Seko Rural, Gokwe Center, and most recently Gokwe Kabuyuni. We all know as well the violence that took place in Nyatsime, which led to the unlawful incarceration of Honorable Job Sikala, Honorable Godfrey Sitole, and 15 others. Now, the position of the Triple C is that we want elections and not war. We condemn the outright lawlessness that's being displayed by ZANU-PF with impunity. With all due respect, they're behaving like a terrorist organization, they're behaving like murderers, thugs, and they are violent beyond any question. For our part, we reaffirm our commitment to non-violent resistance and peace. In fact, our chain champion-in-chief, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, has consistently, repeatedly called for peace. Our choice not to be violent must not be mistaken for weakness. We don't see a peaceful approach as being one that's weak. In fact, choosing peace is strong because you know you've got the support of the people. You don't have to resort to dirty tactics to get their support. We want the opportunity to save lives and not to threaten them. We're constitutionalists and we firmly believe in the rule of law. Now, with that said, we call for an end to the political violence that we're witnessing throughout the country. In almost every single rural area currently, where the Triple C is present, which is every single constituency that's a rural one, we're witnessing incidents of violence and threats against our members. If you look at any of the monthly reports by the Zimbabwe Peace Project, they articulate in very clear detail what's happening to our members. The use of guns in politics has to end. And what we can all see is that this is clearly not a normal election environment. The ANC does not behave like this in South Africa. SWAPO doesn't behave like this. In fact, ZANU-PF's conduct has departed completely from the liberation ethos. Advocate Nelson Chamisa has called for heightened international supervision. If it means calling the UN to supervise, including long-term monitoring to ensure that a free and fair election can be held in 2023. We call for an independent, professional police investigation into the violence that took place yesterday and into the continued violence that we see throughout the country. What tends to happen is that we make reports to the police and we hear nothing further. At best, we hear a statement saying we'll investigate these matters. You'll note that the spokesperson of the police, the Zimbabwe Republic Police, months ago said he would investigate the Upton Mashayanyika matter. To date, we haven't heard anything from that. He was in a rural ward again, and what did he do? He called for Advocate Nelson Chamisa to be killed and for members of the Triple C to be destroyed. That's clear incitement to violence, and nothing like what the Nyatsime group, who are Triple C, is being accused of. And yet, because they're ZANU-PF, they're left off the hook completely. We've made a police report. We expect that police report to be taken seriously. Now, we also note that there are continued remarks by ZANU-PF leaders that are inciting violence amongst various populations. Some of those are made publicly, some of those are made privately. The reports have come to us. I mean, it's on record that a top ZANU-PF official actually said that the Triple C must be crushed like lice. We have not heard a withdrawal of that statement. Like I said earlier, Upton Mashayanyika, for his part, called for the death of our chain champion-in-chief and for the Triple C to be destroyed. We call for accountability on all those matters, not to mention accountability into the investigation of the death, murder, abduction, torture of Mo Blessing Ali. We call for an end to the persecution of our members and community organizers in Nyatsime and a complete end to the lawlessness and selective application and weaponization of the law that we're seeing throughout the country. The police have a constitutional duty to investigate crime and to secure the lives and property of citizens. We have written to regional actors as we speak a dossier of all the political violence that's been perpetrated by ZANU-PF since our inception in January, but even before that is before SADC. We formally written to them. We've also communicated with the African Union. We also call for safety to be the paramount consideration for citizens in whichever localities they're found. And our call to action has been for citizens to use the Mango strategy. And our citizens and our members know exactly what that entails. We continue to call for the release of the Nyatsime 17. And our call to action to the citizens is that let's continue to display courage. We were extremely humbled by the show of peaceful defiance by our members yesterday. They continue to display immense courage in the face of threats, violence, intimidation, harassment, destruction of property by ZANU-PF. But they are bent on fighting to win Zimbabwe for change in these by-elections, but especially for 2023. And so we applaud the heroic defiance of the citizens. We continue to call for adherence to the Zimbabwean constitution on the standard that we expect for elections. We expect them to be free. Elections cannot be free in an atmosphere of violence. Elections cannot be free in an atmosphere when one political party is not allowed to campaign, is not allowed to meet. Elections in Zimbabwe cannot be free when the law selectively applied to punish opponents while allowing impunity on the part of perpetrators of violence. We continue to call for civic society and international bodies to put in place long-term election monitoring mechanisms, and we've engaged those who we need to engage in that respect, and the world is watching, quite frankly. We cannot have another disputed election in 2023. Finally, our call to the citizens is there's only one way to end this lawlessness, this violence, this depravity by ZANU-PF, and that's in the ballot box in 2023. So with that said, we call for young people especially, but citizens generally, to register to vote in their millions, to turn out to vote on voting day in their millions, and to ensure that we defend the vote so that we fight to win Zimbabwe for change. Thank you. I'll take a few questions if there are any, but if there aren't, we can go. Yes.
Kudzayabadziva from TechBank TV. My question is on you reaching out to the regional bodies. You spoke of African Union and SADC. What has been the response with regards to this particular thing that is happening in the country? Because we've seen an increase in violence, political violence, so to speak. So what is SADC and other regional bodies saying, about this matter?
So at the appropriate time, I know that SADC will speak for itself. I obviously don't hold a mandate to speak on the part of SADC, but what I can assure you is that we have engaged them time and again, not once, not twice, and they're fully briefed on the situation, especially the escalation of violence in Zimbabwe. And, it's not in the interest of any SADC country for there to be violence and unrest and a lack of peace and security in Zimbabwe. I think we've all seen the spillover effects of our bad governance crisis throughout the region. And so I think all the regional actors in the region are very alive to the challenges that are ahead, and I trust that they'll speak at the appropriate time on these issues. Yes?
You mentioned the Nyatsime 17.
Yes.
And you also used some terminology in your presentation, weaponization of the law.
Yes.
Do you take it as a part that the incarceration of Honorable Scala, Godfrey, and the others is basically the weaponization of the law.
So the incarceration of Honorable Job Sikala, Honorable Godfrey Sitole, and the entire Nyatsime group is certainly a big sign of the selective application of the law, the weaponization of the bail procedure, and the abuse of state institutions to persecute opponents. The Constitution is very clear that every person has the right to bail. We saw when ZANU-PF members were arrested, Wajgajena, within less than 24 hours, he was released on bail, notwithstanding the clear evidence implicating him. We saw similar events taking place, Mike Chimombe, and there's a host of others. We all saw how Henrietta Rushwaya's case was handled. Someone caught red-handed, but right now walks the streets free. So when it comes to their own members, it's catch and release, treat them nicely. They barely go to police cells custody. They don't come in through the accused person section round the back. They come in their swanky suits through the front, and they're treated with kid gloves. And the opposite happens when it comes to Triple C members. Look at how the law is weaponized even to torture them. They're denied access to food. They're denied access to medical attention. They are made to come in leg irons, notwithstanding that there's a court order that says that that cannot happen. Half the time, Triple C members are charged with offenses that don't even exist. All of this is patently unconstitutional. Even the dragnet approach to the Nyatsime prosecution, why aren't they being tried individually? All their circumstances are individual. They were arrested individually. They were located in different places. The charges against them factually are completely different. Why have they been lumped together as if they're a terrorist group and being made to pay for some unknown punishment? That's what we mean when we say that there's a selective application and weaponization of the legal system, and we call for a restoration of the rule of law in respect of those victims and all citizens in Zimbabwe. The Constitution is very clear that every person is equal before the law. Every person has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law. The Constitution could not be more explicit. Yes, I think I'll take two more.
Thank you. Leo Mnende from newslaw.com. Firstly, probably if you could help me with the Mango strategy, what it's all about. And then secondly, you have painted a very dark picture of the pre-election period. A lot of violence, a lot of disregard for the law from the CCC's perspective. But at the same time, you seem to be confident that you're taking part in this in the upcoming election. Now, how confident are you that there would have been a change in 2023 in the context of what happened in 2008 when eventually Mugabe had to withdraw?
So maybe let me take those two questions to that. So obviously matters of, sorry, can I just ask whoever's phone is ringing to please just switch it off? It is quite distracting, with respect. Thanks. Your first question was around the Mango strategy. It's the protocol of the Triple C not to discuss matters of strategy, but just know that those who are affected by it have been fully briefed. And the essence or the underlying value or philosophy behind it is to keep all citizens safe. It includes having peace groups to protect citizens. It includes, not making yourself any more vulnerable than you need to, and ensuring that we've got an underground manner of communicating and networking and meeting to ensure that we are able to act constitutionally. Violence, as far as the Triple C is concerned, is not an option. So you can be green on the outside, you know what that means, but everybody knows that we're yellow on the inside. Coming to your second question around the flawed electoral environment and the question around participation of the election. Now, nobody, not ZANU-PF, not ZEC, no institution, no individual has the power to take away the right to vote from citizens. Nobody has that power. The right and freedom to choose is so fundamental to democracy, and we stand for democracy as the Triple C. So we've said we will participate in these elections. President Nelson Chamisa has made that categorically clear. But what you will see from the by-elections is that we win despite these odds. But that doesn't mean we accept these flawed conditions. We have to continue to push for the constitutional standard to be met. We're not asking for anything else outside the Constitution. And the Constitution is very clear. There has to be freedom, there has to be fairness, there has to be transparency and verifiability in an election. Now, in these conditions that I'm describing, you just don't have that. And so it's the duty, in fact, of every citizen, because it's your right to choose that's at stake. This is not a triple C ask. It's a constitutional imperative that the reforms happen, and all 7 of the reforms we've asked for, including the integrity of ZEC, its personnel, its processes, polling material, and obviously the freedom of the citizens. So we're going to participate. We push for those reforms, but even if they're not there, as President Chamisa has said, we're going to participate because that right to vote enshrined in Section 67 can't be taken away from anyone. But as you can see, if, as ZANU-PF is doing, you chop people's legs off, you murder people, you butcher people, you shoot guns at people, and then you say we've had an election, is that an election that you can actually say will lead to legitimate governance? It won't. And that will be their cross to bear. But we'll deal with that at the appropriate time. What we are going to continue to do is put leave no stone unturned to ensure that we win the country for change in 2023. If there are no further questions, all that remains is for me to thank everyone very much for your time and for partnering us in this press briefing. Thank you very much to members of the Fourth Estate, all of those who are tuned in at home. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.